So we took up chapter 6 last week. This is the chapter that is traditionally called the chapter with the 4 powers of the mother. The structure of chapter 6, as we discussed last time, is that there are 3 sections actually. The first section discusses the cosmology that Sri Aurobindo puts out in front of us, that talks about the structure of the universe and the nature of divinity manifest in this universe. Then we come to a portion that deals with the 4 powers of the mother. And subsequently, we come to a portion that gives us a certain element of caution and guidance of how, as sadhaks, as seekers, we should be careful in our spiritual journey. So these are the 3 sections, if you will, the 3 broad sections of this chapter. And we had started the first chapter, the first section of this chapter, which is, the cosmology, understanding what is this universe, how does this universe come about, what is the nature of this universe. And in that, Sri Aurobindo gives us a framework to understand the universe and how the manifestation in and around is. The transcendental, the universal, and the individual. That is the framework which we were studying. We talked about the 4 absolutes, the Tat, the Sachidananda, Aditi, the mother, and the Parameshwara and Parameshwari of the Gita. This is one framework that Sri Aurobindo had given us. And in that context, we talked about Tat as the unmanifest. Sachidananda is what holds the possibility of manifestation. Mother as the mediatrix between what is unmanifest and what is being manifest in this world. And the 4th absolute is where the 4 powers of the mother begin to come up. We also talked about emanations and vibhutis, Purusha and Prakriti, Ishvara and Shakti. And now we will proceed further in this discussion. The last portion we talked about in the previous class was the transcendental manifestation. So in this chapter, Sri Aurobindo first describes the transcendental manifestation of the mother. And he talks about how this is an aspect that is beyond the universe itself. We also pointed out that in the traditional scriptures also, there is Tripura Sundari, the mother that is of the transcendental nature. She is beyond this universe. In Gita also, we see context, particularly Gita Upadesha itself, which comes from Purushottama Sri Krishna. So now we move to the next section. There's a little bit of continuity from the previous section, but also these 4 or 5 passages till the beginning of the 4 powers of the mother contain a lot of description in detail of the universal and individual aspect of the mother, but mostly the universal is probably what we will see today. Just a few takeaways so that we don't get overwhelmed by the content of these passages. First, Sri Aurobindo describes the mother is the divine conscious force that dominates all existence. The force that presides over the manifestation and all the planes above the manifestation is the consciousness that mother refers to as the mother. So at every plane, the force that determines the manifestation there is an aspect of the mother. This is something we should have clarity about. The highest plane that we spoke about is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. We will see more of it today also. But as we go through these sections, we will understand that there are many, many planes and universes that exist. And we need to keep it in mind. Some of these universes may not be physical in their appearances or beings, so one cannot really measure where they are in the geospatial terms. That would be incompatible with the spiritual aspect of looking at things. There are many other worlds, and there are many other beings in those worlds, and all of these exist. And even there is a consciousness that presides over their existence, and that is also an aspect of the mother. In this world also, there is the universal manifestation and there is an individual manifestation. So many levels, many planes, many worlds, all of which have a common theme, which is the Divine Mother choosing to manifest. In the course of manifestation, the Divine Mother also has put out several gods and goddesses that preside over individual functions. So this is the broad contour of what we are going to be discussing today. We will get into more details, but I wanted to give you an overview before we jumped into the details so that one doesn't get too overwhelmed by the details. So we start with the passage. The Mahashakti, the Universal Mother, works out whatever is transmitted by her transcendent consciousness from the Supreme and enters into the worlds that she has made. Her presence fills and supports them with the divine spirit and the divine all-sustaining force and delight, without which they could not exist. Elsewhere, Sri Aurobindo elaborates on this particular section. He says, the same conscious force, the divine Shakti, when she spreads herself in the cosmos, in the universe, she is the cosmic Mahashakti. Mahashakti meaning the great Shakti. She acts in a series of steps. She creates all these beings. After creating them, she does not leave them to themselves. She contains and holds them. Not only does she hold them, she enters into them. She dwells in them and conducts them through a million processes and forces. So Sri Aurobindo is explaining here a little more detail. What happens is, from the transcendent consciousness, from the Supreme, actually, she receives a particular direction. There are many possibilities. There are infinite possibilities. Of them, some of them are chosen for manifestation. Those that are chosen for manifestation by the Supreme, the Mother in her transcendental aspect decides to manifest them, what she has been given to do. She enters into them. Here, when we look at creation, there are two fundamental aspects. What is created and the one who creates it. Creation and creator. For creation, there is a need for raw material. That raw material, in philosophical terms, is called material cause. So if I make a table, wood is the material cause. If I make a clay pot, clay is the material cause. Then comes the creator, who in this terminology in philosophy is referred to as the efficient cause, the instrument, the agency. The efficient cause for the table is a carpenter. The efficient cause for a pot is a potter. So now the question becomes, what is the material of creation in this universe? And who is the creator, if you go by this context? It's very interesting that in Vedanta, they have many interesting examples to describe the universe. And they give the example of a spider. Spider. When the spider weaves a web, what is the material that the spider is using? that it is the saliva of the spider. So in a way, the web is the extension of the spider, of who the spider is. It is called Urna Nabhinyaya. In the approach that Sri Aurobindo describes here, when you see that the divine Shakti spreads herself in the cosmos, she enters into the worlds that she has made. Her presence fills and supports them with the divine spirit and the divine all-sustaining force and Ananda. So, here is a situation where the Divine Mother is both the creator and the creation. She enters. She is the one who manifests. And here you will see it is the divine all-sustaining force and delight without which they could not exist. Keep in mind that at every level, Sri Aurobindo is referring to the delight. Turning all things into honey, somewhere Sri Aurobindo says, Ananda is the secret of our existence. That is something we need to keep in mind. We need to keep in mind that it is the Divine Mother who is everything, everywhere. And going further, she marshals and arranges the harmony of her forces and processes, impels the operations of her nature, and moves among them, secret and manifest, in all that can be seen or experienced or put into motion of life. It is she who is working out. That which we call nature or Prakriti is only her most outward aspect. So, we talked about the Purusha and Prakriti principle, and we note here that even what we see around us is her outward aspects. She marshals and arranges harmony of her forces, impels operations of her nature. It is her consciousness that delves into the universe and makes it progress, makes it go forward. There is an intelligence that is embedded at the lowest level, at the smallest level. It is that intelligence that made stone, which is essentially inert, quiver with prana and gradually evolve towards sentient beings like plants. Somewhere there is an intelligence at work. From the plant, further to the animal, there is a gap, there is a leap. It is she who impels that leap. Otherwise, they are not explainable. Otherwise, how many millennia can you pour water on a stone and expect it to start quivering with life force? If that seems too hypothetical, in one of the talks, Shraddhaluji says, when we have a cut in our skin and we suture it, what is the intelligence that makes the two parts of the skin join? Somewhere the cells know that they have to grow towards each other. And they bridge that gap and they heal the wound. Somewhere we have to keep that in mind. Each of the worlds is nothing but one play of the Mahashakti of that system of worlds or universe. Who is there as the cosmic soul and personality of the transcendent mother? Each is something that she has seen in her vision, gathered into her heart of beauty and power and created in her Ananda. She is the cosmic soul behind each of these universes. It is she who joyfully, in a play, creates these universes. In Bhagavata, perhaps, there is a story. When Krishna is in Vrindavan at that time, in a garden, Brahmaji descends his swan and is waiting to meet Sri Krishna. So here he is with 4 heads and Kamandulu and all of that and a Japamala, and he's waiting for Sri Krishna to come and meet him. Similarly, it is said another Brahma arrives and he also lands there. Each look at the other bewildered, and each says, I am the Brahma that creates the universe. So like that, each universe has a cosmic Mahashakti presiding over her. Of course, here in this narration, the Sri Krishna is given the transcendental status, he who controls all the universes. But what we need to keep in mind again is that it is in her playful, joyful Ananda that she creates these universes. I further continue to read the sections. There are many planes of her creation, many steps of the divine Shakti. At the summit of the manifestation of which we are a part of, there are worlds of infinite existence, consciousness, force, and bliss, over which the mother stands unveiled as the unveiled eternal power. Let us take up to this section. There are worlds of infinite existence, consciousness, force, and bliss. This goes back to the quartet that Sri Aurobindo described. Sat, Chit, Tapas, Ananda. And it is the mother that stands as the unveiled eternal power in a world of Satchidananda. She stands unveiled there as the eternal power. You know the mantra that Sri Aurobindo gave, or the mother? Look at this. The worlds of infinite existence, Sat, consciousness, Chit, force, Tapas, bliss, Ananda. Om Anandamayi, Chaitanyamayi, Satyamayi, Parame. Para is the one above that. We need to remember that, this is where when Sri Aurobindo writes, there are invisible links to his greatest philosophy, to the mantras he has given us. Going further, all beings there live and move in an ineffable completeness and unalterable oneness. There is unity and harmony here. As we go to these higher realms, what we see in our world of fragmentation, ignorance, and division is gradually healed. And in the higher realms, we have beings that are moving in completeness, unalterable oneness. Even if each being is manifesting a specific principle, they have not lost contact with the source, where they merge into each other. That is the difference between them and us. When we lose contact with the source, ego becomes the focal point, and therefore we have ignorance and division. But the truth is, as we go into the higher planes of existence, there is a completeness and unalterable oneness. There is a unity based on truth. It is not a divided consciousness among beings. Describing these sections of various lokas also, just as I sent you a small flowchart last time, Sri Aurobindo has given other flowcharts. He describes some of these worlds. I'll read out a couple of names so that you get an idea. He talks about Sad Ghana Loka, Chit Ghana Loka, Tapo Ghana Loka, Ananda Ghana Loka. Then there is Vijnana Loka and then truth mind, truth life, truth form in perpetual substance. And from there comes the temporal manifestation. So we need to just understand, at least at a high level, what he is describing here, even if we cannot relate to it. See, finally, what we are doing here, if I may be blunt enough to say so, we have taken the writings of a rishi with a divya drishti that goes far, far beyond our states of consciousness. And we are trying to understand with our limited consciousness what he is describing, the grand vision of the universe. We don't expect that we will be able to catch up. Because even mental understanding, by definition, belongs to the plane of mind. And he is not describing with the mind. He is describing what he is seeing. दिव्य चक्षु चाहिए ये दृष्टि समझने के लिए. थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा, कोशिश करेंगे हम भी. थोड़ा जितना समझ में आएगा उतना समझ लेंगे. Whatever we can understand, we will try to understand. We have words of the mother, Sri Aurobindo themselves, to guide us through this. And similarly, MP Pandit ji, Anand Reddy ji, they have all, who have spent lives in sadhana, they have given us some insights. We will go by that. As long as we get a reasonable idea, we should be happy. Nearer to us are the worlds of a perfect supramental creation in which the mother is the supramental Mahashakti, a power of divine omniscient will, omnipotent knowledge, always apparent in its unfailing works and spontaneously perfect in every process. There, all movements are the steps of truth. There, all beings are souls and powers and bodies of the divine light. So here, Sri Aurobindo is describing the planes and worlds of supramental creation, where Mother is unveiled as the supramental Mahashakti. This is the world closest to us, he says, closer to us, compared to the Tat that is unmanifest and the Chidghana Loka and Tapoloka and all of those. In this plane, Sri Aurobindo also uses the term Vignaneshwari and Vignaneshwara. Vignaneshwari and Vignaneshwara in his charts. But he describes how the Divine Mother, omniscient will, omnipotent knowledge, and always apparent in its unfailing works. The Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti are perfect at this plane. That is why the Divine Mother in many hymns is called Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti Swarupini. She is the one who wills, and as she wills, the process of what is to be done is unveiled as knowledge, and then the action of what is to be done is unveiled as karma. The more we open to the divine consciousness, the more we will be able to receive these divine impulses. We saw that in chapter 5 also. There, all movements are the steps of truth. All beings are souls and powers and bodies of divine light. If one really wants to understand the workings and movements in the supramental world, there are sections of Life Divine where Sri Aurobindo describes it. Similarly, there are chapters in Yoga of Self-Perfection of Synthesis of Yoga. Both of these describe, for example, something very simple. We all are time-bound creatures, right? He describes how in the supramental world, Trikala Drushti is a natural process. As one evolves into supramental consciousness, one automatically has the capacity to see all the 3 dimensions of time simultaneously. Similarly, whereas acquiring knowledge is a mental process for us, in the supramental world, it is knowledge by identity. Similarly, integrality direct truth consciousness, spontaneous truth will. These are all the mechanisms. These are all the processes and nature at work in the supramental creations. So that is how these worlds are described. But then Sri Aurobindo comes down further from those high levels. And by the way, we are not yet at the universal plane. Huh? We are moving from the transcendental to the universal still. But here where we dwell are the worlds of ignorance, worlds of mind and life and body, separated in consciousness from their source, of which this earth is a significant center and its evolution a crucial process. The worlds of ignorance, the worlds of mind and life and body. So I want to step back here a little bit. Just now we saw in the upper hemisphere, Sat, Chit, Ananda, the three on the top. Now he is describing body, life and mind, the three at the bottom, the three at the top and the three at the bottom. Between them is the supermind. So this is how we have to understand the 7 planes of existence in Sri Aurobindo's cosmology. Body, life, mind, supermind, Ananda, Chit and Sat. So Satchidananda from the top, supermind in the middle, mind, life and body. This is an important framework to understand Sri Aurobindo not only here but in other places also. This understanding of the 7-fold universe is helpful. So 3 at the top become the upper hemisphere, Satchidananda. 3 at the bottom, body, life and mind become the upper ardha, the lower hemisphere. And between them is the supramental. And of course, as we study Sri Aurobindo more, we understand that between mind and supermind also there are several gradations he has described. Illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind. He has described all that. We'll see that. So now that we understand the 7 planes of existence, let us move our attention to what he says here. He says that our mind and life and body are separated in consciousness from their source. We know that. We are in ignorance. We don't have a spontaneous knowledge of truth which exists in the supramental plane. But he puts a very interesting phrase. He says, Earth is a significant center and its evolution a crucial process. Why is Earth a significant center and why is its evolution a crucial process? We have a very insightful comment here from MP Panditji. He says, Earth is the concentration of all the 7 principles of existence that we have just described. From Satchidananda to the supermind, all of them are gradually supposed to manifest on the terrestrial atmosphere on Earth. So this is one of the reasons why Earth is a crucial center. Satchidananda, supramental, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, all of that are supposed to manifest here. There is also another aspect of the same process. In many places, Sri Aurobindo and Mother have said that the psychic principle is implanted only in the Earth atmosphere, not anywhere else in the universe. The evolution of the psychic is only possible on Earth. Therefore, Earth is an important principle of manifestation. All the 7 planes have to eventually come down here. Yes, when we look around, it doesn't seem very likely, but that's okay. We'll still get there. That is the assurance. This too, with all its obscurity and struggle and imperfection, is upheld by the Universal Mother. This too is impelled and guided to its secret aim by the Mahashakti. What a beautiful assurance, isn't it? On one side, we see a world full of contradictions. We have enough food for entire humanity, but 350 million people starve today. We have enough weapons to destroy the earth probably 50 times or more. Not once. That many weapons we have accumulated as a race. And as a race, we seem to be drawing these artificial boundaries of nations and shooting each other dead. In spite of all that, I know all of this must be going through your mind when you say, where is the divine principle? In spite of all that, if you look at the journey of humanity and mark the growth century after century, the overall living conditions and the consciousness of humanity has been going up century after century. We don't chop off hands of thieves anymore. The strong doesn't go and beat up the weak in each colony or each city and grab their properties or wives. It doesn't happen anymore. There is a gradual progression, although probably with enough of pitfalls that make us wonder where we are headed. What Sri Aurobindo assures us that this too is impelled and guided to its secret aim by the Mahashakti. The mother, as the Mahashakti of the triple world of the ignorance, stands in the intermediate plane between the supramental light, the truth life, the truth creation, which has to be brought down here, and this mounting and descending hierarchy of planes of consciousness that, like a double ladder, lapse into the nescience of matter and climb back through the flowering of life and soul and mind into the infinity of the spirit. This is one dense package. So we will try to unwrap it layer by layer. First, the mother as the Mahashakti of this triple world of the ignorance stands in an intermediate plane between the supramental plane and the physical, vital, and mental. Here, he is referring to the universal aspect of the mother. She stands as the Mahashakti guiding at the overmental plane, because he says, look at the opening sentence. The mother as the Mahashakti of this triple world of ignorance, physical, vital, mental, stands in an intermediate plane between the supramental plane and us. So what is the plane next to the supramental? When we come down, it is the overmental plane. So he is describing it here. You don't see that much. We don't see the overmental mother or a supramental mother. We don't see such references, but the executive force of this universe is she. Universal aspect of the mother. The mother was in her room and she was assisted by sadhikas. She was assisted by other sadhaks in and around. One of them perhaps must have read this book, The Mother. She went and said, Mother, I know you, personal mother, the individual mother. What is this universal mother, this cosmic Mahashakti? I don't understand. It is written that the mother moved a few steps forward, and where she was standing, there was a column of white light. There was a column of white light. What we saw in her physical frame was just one aspect. In fact, even ashramites who were evolved saw other manifestations of her. For example, there was a time when mother used to take a walk on the terrace in the morning. During that time, Kapali Shastriyarji, who lived in a house nearby, in the balcony road only behind, he used to see her in these mornings when she was taking a walk on the terrace. And what he saw was a column of white light that was moving. In fact, later, he wrote flame of white light. That was how he described the mother. And MP Panditji even brought out a book with that name, Flame of White Light, with many pictures of the mother on the mother. What we see, what we understand is a minuscule of what mother is and was. We come to the second part of this sentence, the mounting and descending hierarchy of planes of consciousness that like a double ladder laps into the nescience of the matter and climb back again through the flowering of the life and soul and mind. First, let us take these two phrases, the mounting and descending hierarchy of planes of consciousness. Mounting means ascending, that is going up. And then descending, ascent and descent, involution and evolution. The Divine Mother coming down is involution. The ignorant species seeking light is evolution. As the Divine Mother is coming down, there are planes of consciousness that are established, each plane, many worlds, many beings, many presiding deities. And then similarly, as she is coming down, the reverse also is happening, where there are methods and ways being established for the ignorance to come out. So the ascending and descending hierarchy of planes in consciousness refers to Sri Aurobindo's framework related to ascent and descent. He uses that phrase and describes it in many places. The call and the response, all of that. In fact, the very opening phrase of this book talks about the aspiration that calls from below and the supreme grace from above that answers. So here is ascending and here is descending. And similarly, when we read Savitri, we have these beautiful passages of the Divine Mother consenting to descend into this world. At the end, in the yoga of Ashwapati, all of that, we talk about that. Like a double ladder, laps into nescience. Nescience means the darkness, where there is absolutely no conscience. There is no conscience, inconscience. And then it climbs back again with the flowering of all of this. She stands there above the gods, and all her powers and personalities are put out in front of her for the action. Now we are getting into, so far we have only seen the descent of the Divine Mother. Now we are seeing the widening. She is putting out various forces in this universe to work. Look at this description now. She stands there above the gods, and all her powers and personalities are put out in front of her for the action. And she sends down emanations of them into these lower worlds to intervene, to govern, to battle and conquer, to lead and turn their cycles, to direct the total and individual lines of the forces. Beautiful, powerful description. We saw last time how emanation is like a ray of light. It contains the same vibration and power, not to the same degree, but the same vibration and power. A vibhuti is a concentration of power that is put out for the work that can withdraw after the work is completed. We also saw contemporary vibhutis like Leonardo da Vinci and maybe some of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shivaji, all of these kind of manifestations that have come, made a difference in a particular field and then withdrew. All of these gods and powers and all of these emanations, now we are talking of in Sri Aurobindonian terms, these are overmental gods. When Sanatana Dharma refers to each principle of life represented by a god, we are talking of these overmental gods, right? In the traditional literature also, there is a lot of description of these different facets and gods. For example, there are various Vedic deities, Aditi, Usha, Parvati, Saraswati, not Parvati, Prithvi, Saraswati, and so on. Then going into Sri Vidya, we see Dasamahavidyas coming in, Kali, Tara, Tripura, Chinnamastaka, Dhumavati. A lot of description there. Then you have Dashamahavidyas, then you have Navadurgas. Pradhamam Saila Putri Cha, Dvitiyam Brahmacharinim, Trutiyam Chandra Ghantechi, and so on it goes on. Then you have, I'm talking of the feminine deities primarily here. Ashtamatrika or Saptamatrikas, Brahmani, Vaishnavi, Maheshwari, Kaumari, Varahi, Chamundi, all of these. Going further, in fact, if you go into something like a Khadgamala, which describes 108 emanations of the mother, Kameshwari, Bhagamalini, Nityaklinne, Bherunde, Anima Siddhe, Lagima Siddhe. Lot of different deities, different manifestations. They have all come to support the mother, establish the divine consciousness in our plane. Going further, the mother not only governs all from above, but she descends into this lesser triple universe. Impersonally, all things here, even the movements of ignorance, are herself in veiled power and her creations in diminished substance. Her nature body and nature force, and they exist because, moved by the mysterious fiat of the Supreme to work out something that was there in the possibilities of the infinite, she has consented to the great sacrifice and has put on like a mask the soul and forms of the ignorance. This is also typical Sri Aurobindo, a sentence that is a paragraph. It captures so many aspects. For its comprehensiveness, we give 100%, but for our capacity to understand, we have to give 35%. So we will try to unwrap what he has written here layer by layer. The first thing we need to understand is she's doing a lot of things here, but why is she doing it? It is there in this phrase, moved by the mysterious fiat of the Supreme. That is the cause. First, the Supreme is giving her a direction, giving her an indication. This needs to happen. Right? That is the original impulse. And what does she do? She consents to manifest herself, leaving her status of Sat, Chit and Ananda. She is not going on a picnic. She is coming down into the realms of ignorance, leaving her mighty, joyful abode where she is the mighty Maharajni, the Queen Empress. From there she is coming down. Where? She is coming into the worlds of ignorance. For beings of high consciousness, my friends, taking birth in a human plane is a torturous process. In fact, in our Puranas, it is described how torturous it is. There are beings that when they are cursed to be born on earth, they plead the person who gives them the shap, "Mujhe wapas yoni mein mat bhejiye, don't send me back into the womb." Because it is suffocation and suffering. Some advanced rishis who were asked to be born or who agreed to be born, they were born directly as a teenager. They come down and they say, "Okay, I am born, I am going to do my tapas, I will come back later." They don't take birth through the womb. Because when she consents to come down, she is not coming down in her entire full manifestation. She is coming down in a diminished and limited consciousness. Because she is coming down into this world of ignorance. Many people wrote to Sri Aurobindo, "Oh, it is easy for you to do, you are just an avatar." You read those letters, right? And he says, "What do you mean I am just an avatar? I have gone through everything that each human person is going through with probably greater intensity. I can even say greater intensity because of greater sensitivity. I mean, look at their consciousness and look at what they are subject to. Those of us who are holding jobs in high positions, sometimes we are blessed with colleagues who are sent to make us progress. And we kind of say, how does this person not understand what I'm saying? And we get so frustrated sometimes. Now imagine this multiplied by 10,000 or 100,000. Anyway, so It is a suffering. And so here, three parts of this sentence. First, moved by the mysterious fiat of the Supreme to work out something, she descends into the lower triple universe, body, mind, and life. The movements of ignorance. Now here we should understand, even the movements of ignorance are herself in veiled power and her creations in diminished substance. This is not only something to be understood as the Divine Mother coming down, but this is also a key to our own sadhana. We have to realize that no matter how much ignorant the world looks and how much difficult the circumstances look, one of the lines of sadhana for a spiritual seeker is to accept the people around as well as the circumstances around as the manifestation of the divine and the divine will. Our sadhana and the occult reality of divine manifestation are meeting at this point. Elsewhere, Sri Aurobindo describes, regard even the ugliest means not physically ugliest, even the wickedest person as the divine, wearing a grotesque mask for some purpose. Even the worst person, he says, think of him as a divine putting on a mask. So, here, she is herself veiled in all these creations and substance. You need to understand this. And she has consented to the great sacrifice and put on like a mask the soul and forms of the ignorance. But personally too, she has stooped to descend here into the darkness that she may lead it to the light, into falsehood and error that she may lead it to the truth, into this death that she may turn it into godlike life, into this world pain and its obstinate sorrow and suffering that she may end it in the transforming ecstasy of the sublime Ananda. Now we are moving from the universal mother manifestation to the individual mother's manifestation. We talked about transcendent, universal, and individual, correct? So, after the individual manifestation was described, Sri Aurobindo after the universal was described, we are now looking at Sri Aurobindo's description of the individual. Personally too, he is referring to the mother that we know, Nira Alfasa. Personally too, she has stooped to descend here into the darkness that she may lead it to light, into the falsehood and error that she may convert it to truth, into the death so that she may turn it into godlike life. Remember our famous and beautiful shloka, Asatoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. And the whole suffering and all of that should be eventually transformed into sublime Ananda. In her deep and great love for her children, she has consented to put on herself the cloak of this obscurity, condescended to bear the attacks and tortuous influences of the powers of the darkness and the falsehood, born to pass through the portals of birth, that is death, taken upon herself the pangs and sorrow and sufferings of the creation, since it seemed thus alone could it be lifted to the light and joy and truth and eternal life. This is the great sacrifice, and sometimes, and called sometimes the sacrifice of the Purusha, but much more deeply the holocaust of the Prakriti, the sacrifice of the Divine Mother. This particular passage is very poignant, very moving, and almost heartrending. It makes one contemplate, reflect, and perhaps when we realize that the one whom we love and adore as the Divine Mother, the one whom we consider as the center of our life, the one whom we hold on to go through this unpredictable life, to realize the sufferings that she had to go through, to make herself accessible to you and me, it naturally moves us, touches us to realize what she has gone through for us. It is no longer impersonal. As Sri Aurobindo says, personally too. She has come down here for helping the seeking humanity. This is a passage perhaps that could be taken up as lines for satsang. It is easy to keep elaborating on these words and their nuances and their meaning, but more than anything else, the best we can do is allow these words to touch our own heart deeply, to realize what it is that the Divine Mother has undertaken upon herself, and visualize or imagine or try to touch what it means for a consciousness as vast, for a consciousness that is beyond time and space, to come down into humanity, where we find the burden of lies and arrogance and insults and wickedness and cruelty that we find so difficult to bear. Imagine someone of that level of consciousness coming down and enduring it, bearing it. That is why the last phrase, much more deeply, the holocaust of the Prakriti. It is not just a suffering. This is not just an inconvenience. This is leaving behind 99% of what she is and coming down. The beauty of this chapter, of this section of this chapter, universal, individual, the transcendental and universal and individual, is that if we take the trouble to meditate upon it and to understand it, it actually paints the vast canvas in front of us and allows us to visualize the Divine Mother in all her glory. Kapala Shastriyarji, by the way, Kapala Shastriyarji was a Siddha Purusha while he was in the ashram. He was a self-realized soul who had done many upasanas for decades before he came to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So he was a visionary, like Sri Aurobindo at one point said, some of the sadhaks in Sri Aurobindo ashram, if they go out, they can establish their own ashrams. He was one of those people. So when we take his words, we are not reading a mental jotting. We are actually seeing what a drishta is saying. He said, this is the first time that Aditi has come down in all her glory in the body of the Mother. She has never come down in that completeness and fullness. Some aspects of her have come down, but in her fullness, she has come down. Many of you know, but I may perhaps just take a moment or two to narrate a couple of episodes of Ashram Chronicles. There was an ashram, I may take 5-7 minutes on this. There was an ashram once in Bengal where there was a Guruji and a few sadhaks. And they were all Kali Upasakas. And they were doing their intense sadhanas. As it turns out, after a few years, they were all men, and Guruji decided to admit a woman sadhika. Halchal mach gaya. And some of the sadhaks decided to leave the ashram. So Guruji ko pranam kiya. Whatever little they had, they took it and they left. After a few days, they regretted their decision and they went back to the Guruji. He said, once you have left me, once aapne jab mujhe tyag kiya, I cannot accept you back even if you say you are wrong. Now, these people were completely, Their situation was very bad. They were genuinely feeling the regret and wondering what came over them to do what they did. After some time, the Guruji, seeing their genuine repentance, felt a pang of pity. So he called them and told them, okay, I cannot admit you, but I will tell you a great secret. The Divine Mother has come down. She is on earth right now, somewhere along the coast, somewhere along the eastern coast of India. So then, these sadhaks were naturally quite excited and they wanted to have the darshan of the Divine Mother. And they were all ready to take Guruji's leave. And he said, हाँ एक और बात, पिछले बार काली थी, इस बार गोरी है. He said, in the previous incarnation she was dark, in this incarnation she is fair, referring to the mother. And needless to say, they came, they had the darshan of the mother. Many people. And when they had the darshan of the mother, they had the darshan of their own vision of the mother also, Kali. Similarly, there are many sadhaks, many seekers who have come to the Divine Mother and seen their Ishtadevata in her place. Some see Sri Rama, some see Durga. All of this has happened. We saw the opening of this chapter with the transcendental, then we saw the universal, we saw all the manifestations of gods and goddesses, and we saw the individual. But also one last thing I want to point out and remind, that when we say the personal aspect of the mother was Mira Alfasa, one should also not forget that when she consented to come into the manifestation, each of us became her own Ansh. Mother herself said, look deep in your heart, you will find me. That divine spark is the spark of psychic being, the spark that has come down into manifestation, the psychic principle that is evolving in earth in each of us. All of that too is the Divine Mother. So we will stop our session this time here.